Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Damn Podcast. I'm your host, Angie Machado, and I am joined with BeaverBlitz beat writer Jake Hedberg. Jake, it's been a few weeks. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. School's starting to ramp up, but just got to get past a couple tests, and hopefully we'll be coasting through the rest of the term. How about you?
Midterm season is here. Jake is dedicated and schoolwork. BeaverBlitz got lots of stuff for you. I'm actually in Hawaii right now, so I'm not at home, and hopefully the Wi-Fi sticks because you guys know how sometimes I've been on the road and it breaks up. But so far so good. We are here. I'm here with a bunch of girlfriends celebrating a birthday. So kind of a big birthday tomorrow for me. So get out of Dodge, ran away for a week and left Eric and the boys at home. But we are here. We are going to talk football recruiting. So actually, this is the first birthday that I've actually not been around home for signing day. Signing day is Wednesday. That we have second signing day now. The most excitement I think happens really in December signing period. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about what to expect on Wednesday, which is the second signing period, the late signing period. We're going to recap the signees that already signed in December, talk about those transfers, just give you guys a real overview of what has happened over the past 2 months as far as recruiting goes. We can maybe even talk, I didn't put this on the rundown, Jake, but 2026 recruiting has heated up in a big way. So we'll talk briefly the 10,000-foot overview on that. Next week, we are going to try to jump back on with another podcast for baseball. So we'll keep this one recruiting centric. It might not be a full hour. Next week, we'll go ahead and go with the baseball preview. And then we jump back into a preview of spring camp, which starts March 4th down in Corvallis. So no rest for the weary. Baseball, football, you name it. But let's talk Wednesday signing period, Jake. It shouldn't be a super eventful day, but what are you expecting? Who are you expecting to sign with the Beavers on Wednesday?
Yeah, at this point, we're really only expecting one scholarship player to sign, and that is Tristan Tia, the brand new four-star actually now.
Four-star earned his fourth star
quarterback commit, which is huge. I mean, he's a super talented kid. He's got a great frame, 6'2", 180, could probably put on 10, 15, 20 pounds over the next couple seasons, and he very well could be Oregon State's quarterback of the future. Big time get for Coach Bray, Coach Gundy, and really for a program like Oregon State to go out and get a four-star quarterback in the transfer portal and then get a four-star high school quarterback recruit as well. It's definitely a pretty big deal, that doesn't really happen at Oregon State too often, to bring in two four-star quarterbacks in a single offseason, and they've done it. So pretty excited. Outside of that, one confirmed preferred walk-on with Jalen Hill, a defensive lineman from Grant. Very good basketball player as well. Stand out there. And then we may see another preferred walk-on or two crack, but at this point, it's kind of unclear.
Yeah. Typically, we've seen Oregon State add a preferred walk-on or two. Jake and I will refer to those guys as PWOs, but Tristan Tia is really going to be the star of Wednesday's class. We've got a couple comments. If you guys are watching us live on YouTube and you have a question, drop it in the comments. I see that Zabel Thomas asking about who within the program could replace Coach Fentz. We'll get to the news that wide receiver coach Kafense Hinson has left for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here in a little bit. But Tia, I think, is really going to be one to watch. Like you said, I can't remember a time when Oregon State had two four-star guys in that quarterback room. So that is a big signing. And there was some confusion. He's been committed for a while, guys. He did not sign, and I'm going to say sign in air quotes. So if you're not watching us live, he actually signed quietly. Oregon State had his letter of intent, but he asked if everyone could keep that quiet and pretend that he didn't, sign as he wanted to announce they were still deep in a playoff run, and he wanted to wait until till February to sign with all of his classmates that were signing. So he will be announced officially on Wednesday, with his teammates who will be announcing where they're moving on. That being said, there's a whole bunch of other signees. Some have enrolled, and some will be enrolling this summer, or even during spring term. So we'll go through these, Jake. I want to start with the group of enrolled guys. So the guys are already on campus, already working out. We've heard some really good things about these young men. We'll go cornerback. There's two cornerbacks in Trey Glasper and Jaleel Tucker, an edge rusher and Blue Dantzler, wide receiver Elijah Washington, linebacker Jeremiah Ioane, and safety Zephan Walker. Who are you most excited to see of this group?
Yeah, I mean, I think out of this group, Trey Glasper comes to mind, and then I think Blue Dantzler as well. I think those are two guys that the coaching staff are pretty high on. Trey Glasper is a guy that, he's kind of got the frame to compete already. Oregon State's had in the past 2 seasons now with Jermod McCoy, and then with Exodus Ayers this past season, Oregon State's had 2 true freshman cornerbacks, see some pretty significant time. And I wouldn't be shocked if Trey Glasper's that next guy. Super talented kid. It's a really good receiver as well. I think a lot of schools were recruiting him to play receiver as well. I think he's the 3rd highest rated recruit in this class, with T.N. Fisher ranked in front of him. But I think Glasper is certainly a true freshman to watch. And then Blue Dantzler is a guy that, he had a really strong senior season. He was committed to Utah State, came and visited officially. Then he flipped from Utah State to Oregon State. He's kind of a little bit shorter for an outside backer. He's only 6'2", 6'3", compared to guys like, Nico Taylor, who's 6'5", 6'6". But, Blue's kind of got that frame already. He's probably 210, 220. He's a great pass rusher. Super excited to see what Blue Dantzler can do against the Oregon State offensive tackles come spring ball.
Yeah, and I think the 2 things that really come to mind, Jake, when I think of especially Trey Glasper and Blue Dantzler, is just their length. Both of them, lots of length, long arms, rangy guys. I like what Oregon State's doing there with the defense. Jeremiah Ioane looks to have suffered a knee injury for his social media.
Yeah, there's something going on.
Going on there. So don't know how in the mix he'll be this spring, if at all. We haven't had our sit down with Coach Bray yet. But like I said, Trey Glasper and Blue Dantzler are 2 big ones to watch. Now, talking about signees, I'm just going to start with Nick Fisher, because along with Tristan Tia, he is right there. He was the number 2 ranked of this class, an edge rusher, again, out of Texas, Houston area. He was a last-minute addition to the Navy All-American game in San Antonio and really turned some heads. I thought he might actually get a bump to 4-star. I think he was right on the bubble. What do you like about Nick Fisher's game?
Yeah, I mean, he's a high motor guy. He kind of reminds me of like Dylan Wynn almost. Just he's a guy that he doesn't stop. I really like his intensity. I think the plan right now is to bulk him up and play him at the inside defensive tackle spots. He's 6'4", 250 right now. So I think their goal is to, slap on 20, 30 pounds, get him ready to play some more offensive guards and centers. But really, he's a talented kid. He doesn't stop. I think he was a huge get to flip from Texas State. He's a guy the coaching staff identified as a guy who's having a really strong senior season. There have been a handful of those guys, and Fisher's probably the biggest out of that group, and was a good get. I mean, he wanted to come to Oregon State. The staff saw that, evaluated him, got him on campus, and they sealed it.
Yeah, and by all accounts, he's so excited to get to campus. Mm-hmm. Another big signee is running back commit. It's Corday Glass. That one was one that, I think there was some question with the, there was some worry with Oregon State. He had a ton of offers coming in late, or a lot of guys looking at him, signed with Oregon State, What do you like about out of Hanford, California, for those that aren't familiar? What do you like about Corday? What he brings to that running back room that already is super strong with some talent?
Yeah, I mean, I think based off of his high school tape, I think Corday Glass has the potential to be one of, if not the best pass catching back Oregon State's had since Jaquiz. I mean, he's really a true dual threat guy out of the backfield. He missed a couple of games this past season, but he really crushed it as a sophomore, crushed it as a junior, and he had some pretty big name programs, really coming after him pretty hard towards the end of his senior season. So this was a big get for Oregon State. He's not a super big guy. He's not a Damian Martinez or a Deshaun Fenwick. He's definitely more of an like a Trelo, Anthony Hankerson type back, and I think he's a guy who, on the offensive side of the ball, I think he might be the most likeliest instant impact contributor as a true freshman.
Oh, really? Okay, so you think we can see him?
I wouldn't be shocked to see him. I think he'll redshirt, but I think the fact that Oregon State, I mean, realistically, he's their number 4 scholarship back. They've got Hankerson and Sala, and then Reichel and Cornell Hatcher as well. But I don't think it's out of the question to see them get Glass some experience, especially if the pass catching ability that he's shown in high school and 7-on-7 translates to the college game.
Yeah, we have a comment here, and I know this isn't one of the signees, but Squeaky Clean asked, "Do you expect Salahuddin Allah to get more reps next season?"
Totally. I think Salah's a guy that's gonna definitely eat into Anthony's touch as well. Like, I don't think he'll necessarily get half of the carries, but I don't think a 3-to-1 ratio is all that crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that gobs of talent that young man has. I know the coaching staff is really excited. Coach Ford was really excited about him.
Coach Ford called him the best back he's ever seen. He's got the potential to be one of the best backs he's ever seen.
Yeah, just so much vision, speed, strength. Definitely one to watch for Beaver Nation. Okay, so then sticking with the offensive side of the ball with signees, I believe Jake Normoyle, interior offensive lineman, he's coming in for spring semester, correct? Or spring term?
Yep. Jake just wrapped up his high school. He wrapped up high school last week, so he is done with school. Expecting him to be at some practices during the winter term, but he can't participate. So I think he'll just kind of, be watching and, getting ready. And then he will be in campus after spring break in April.
Yeah.
Yep. And he will join the team for practices then.
So that's a big one too. And I know you have, you went to Westland, friends with the Normoyle family. What does is Jake one that you think redshirts to add some size? Do you think he could be pushing at the, as a freshman, redshirt freshman? What are your thoughts on him developmentally as of right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think physically he's ready, but I do think that it's very rare for offensive linemen to come in and play as true freshmen. And I think it's more beneficial for Jake to redshirt. I think he's already got the size to play offensive line. It's probably 6'4", 300, 310, which is about as big as you want. Now, you may necessarily want to turn some of that weight from bad weight to good weight, if that makes sense. But Jake's also a guy that's, he's played left tackle his whole life pretty much. Now he's bumping inside to play center, which is a big adjustment. I mean, it takes a while to get that down. So I think Jake will definitely be a guy that redshirts, but I don't think it's out of the question that he sees action in a handful of games. We've seen that happen with Strand. We saw it happen with Luka Vincic as well, I believe. And now Jake could be next in line to get that done.
Yeah, and that speaks volumes for what the coaching staff sees from him intellectually, because to jump from tackle to center, which, you need to have some brains to play center, speaks volumes. And we saw that actually kind of rewinding to Joshua Gray this past weekend with the Senior Bowl. He played left tackle early in his career, jumped to guard this year, and was playing center some at the Senior Bowl this year. So takes a lot of ability and smarts to do that. So the staff obviously sees something in Jake Normoyle from Westland. Definitely one to watch. So then we move Logan Knapp, edge rusher. This is a guy the staff is very high on.
Yeah, I mean, I think physically he almost reminds me of a John McCartan or Corey Stover. I mean, he's 6'5", 6'6". He's a big kid. He needs to put some more size on. I think he's like 225, 230 right now. So ideally he bumps up to 250-ish. But, that's going to be a monster coming off the edge. I'm super excited about him. He has a really long wingspan as well, which is always a great thing for outside linebackers. He's one of the guys the coaching staff is very high on. So they think Knapp is going to have a very good career in Corvallis.
And another in-state guy out of Eastern Oregon, Cody Signer, tight end. What do you like about his game?
He's got a ton of potential. I mean, 6'7", 225 tight ends that move like a receiver don't really come out all that often. But he's a guy that's never really played 11-man football. He's from 1A Crane Union, which I think that was his school, which is a team that plays 8-man football. So that'll be a big adjustment, and going from playing 1A football in Oregon to playing Pac-12 is going to be a challenge. So I think he's a guy who red shirts and kind of develops, but I think physically he has all the tools. He could be very special, and he's a guy that Brian Wozniak and Jonathan Smith were very high on as well. So this was a big
one
get.
Of their top. Yeah,
This was a really big get. Washington State really wanted him. Boise really wanted him, and I think he's the second Oregon legacy. His dad played for the Ducks, as did Jake Normoyle's dad. So the second one to wind up in Corvallis.
Yeah, it's huge. It's big. And another tight end that I don't know if we've talked about because his commitment was announced just a few weeks ago, tight end Tiandre Waverly out of Washington. Yeah,
Tiandre can move. He's one of the faster tight ends probably in the country. I want to say he runs like a 10.6 100-meter, 10.7, which is for a 6'4", 225-pound athlete is insane. Tiandre can scoot. So I think he's the more likely out of the two to see more action earlier. I think he's going to be more split out as a pass catcher. Compared more in the in the Musgrave type hold. Super excited about him. It's always a big get to get a guy on national television, and having an Oregon State hat on the table next to Washington and Notre Dame is one thing, but picking that hat it's huge. So I think that was a huge get from Oregon State tight ends coach Will Heck. Excuse me. And I think that tight end room has a very strong future.
Absolutely. And then we'll talk about a couple more tight ends when we get down to the transfers. But sticking with that offensive side of the ball, offensive tackle, offensive lineman, a couple guys, Noah Thomas and Maddox Conway. A couple names that Beaver fans might not be super familiar with. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, Thomas is a guy somewhat local. He's from Vancouver, just about as local as it gets. Good frame, 6'6". I want to say he's pushing 270 right now. So he's definitely a guy that's going to have to red shirt and, bulk up, try and get to 290, 300 pounds. He was kind of an under-recruited guy once he committed to Oregon State. I think Oregon State was actually his only FBS offer, but he had a really strong senior season. Had some schools, pushing after him, but he was a guy that Kyle DeVan identified early in the process, and DeVan really, really wanted him. So I think it may be a couple years down the road, but I'm excited to see what Thomas, what Thomas brings to the table. And then Conway is actually a Crescent Valley kid. He played his first 3 years of ball at Crescent Valley, and then he moved to Texas for his senior year, where he was teammates with Nick Fisher. So I think Oregon State already had some familiarity with Conway, but then seeing him with another one of their top targets, it kind of reintroduced them to Conway. And again, I think he's also kind of a guy that is going to need a red shirt and put some pounds on. But, I mean, Conway's a guy that wants to be a Beaver. He grew up a huge Oregon State fan, which is always a plus. So, yeah, I mean, between those two guys, I think there's a ton of potential. Probably won't see them on the field until their sophomore, junior years.
Great info. A couple defensive players, safety Sean Craig and edge rusher Jesse Myers.
Yeah, so Sean Craig is one of 3 guys the Beavers pulled out of Liberty High School in Nevada, joining Jeremiah Hilwani and Skylar Jackson as well. So Oregon State's building that Las Vegas pipeline, which is, in my mind, a pretty good thing.
And that's Coach Cooper? Is that right?
Yeah, yes, it was Coach Hayward and Coach Coop, but now it'll just be Coach Coop. Sean Craig's a big guy. He's 6'3", 190. We've kind of seen Oregon State start to move towards the bigger safeties with Skylar Thomas, Tari Sivey, Jaheim Patterson. I mean, all those guys are 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", and Sean Craig fits right in that. He had to play corner this season due to a bunch of guys on his team weren't healthy, so he was kind of playing out of position. But he was solid as a senior. He played some really good receivers, and he held his own. So I think he's a guy that's got a ton of potential. Oregon State does have a pretty strong safety room, so I think he might be a contributor down the road rather than as a freshman. But I think this was a steal for Oregon State, and I think he is honestly one of the more underrated guys in this class. And then Jesse Myers, defensive lineman from California. He's a guy who's listed as an outside linebacker, but the plan is to bulk him up and play defensive tackle. I think he's going to be a guy that redshirts as well, just to put on that weight. I think he's like 255, 260 right now, and they're trying to bulk him up to 280, 290. So another guy where probably just going to be a scout team guy this upcoming season until he puts on some weight. And then I think he's a guy that's going to be able to compete for some time as a redshirt freshman.
Yeah, and you and I have talked to. I mean, those two, Myers and Craig, both just so fun to talk to and get to know. So Beaver fans will have a nice 4-year span of watching these guys grow and develop. Last on the list, leave him, and you mentioned him just briefly because he is from Liberty High in Las Vegas, Nevada, is Oregon State legacy. Now, this is an Oregon State legacy. Steven Jackson, son of former Beaver great Steven Jackson. He's coming in as a running back. He is an athlete. What are your thoughts on Skylar?
Yeah, I mean, Skylar's a guy where we really don't know a whole lot. He's only played 1 year of competitive football, so not a whole lot of tape out there on him. I want to say he played tight end his 1 year. I don't know that for sure. But he's a guy who's being brought in to play running back. And, while Corday Glass is kind of that smaller back, Skylar Jackson, he takes after his dad. He's going to be a big back. He's 6'1", 215 already, I think. And I think they're just going to try and pack some more on that, try and hit him up to 225. He's a guy who I'm honestly most excited to watch him in the spring out of everybody, in the fall, just because I don't know a whole lot about him. Great bloodlines. I think it's going to be great to have Steven Jackson around the program as well. But I'm just excited to see what Skylar can do.
Yeah, kind of an unknown right now. What he brings. So there was also a good. So those are your developmental guys for the most part. Those are the guys that are going to come in, bulk up, learn the system, maybe have a guy or two that breaks on through. But Oregon State also hit the transfer portal pretty hard and grabbed some pretty big name players. When you look at someone like Malik Murphy at quarterback, who I think we've talked about a ton, but a couple of guys kind of really, there's several that stand out, but Riley Williams, the tight end from Miami, Rajon Davis, the linebacker at SC, I think could be big. And we were talking off air, Josiah Timoteo will be a definitely one to watch too. I'll start with Riley Williams from Miami. He transferred in from Miami, wanted to be closer to home. He's originally from Oregon. What do you like about Riley Williams' game?
This is a huge get. I think he's the most talented tight end Oregon State's had in a couple of years. He's really just a hell of a tight end. He wasn't. It's not like he wasn't playing at Miami. Like, he played and he was making an impact. He's a big guy. He's big. I played basketball against him a couple times. He's a pretty physical kid. I think this was a huge get. I think he's going to be Oregon State's best tight end. Going to be a day one starter. I think what Coach Heck did with Jackson Bowers and Riley as well in such a short time, I think that's exciting.
Jackson Bowers doesn't have a ton of film though. So do you see him being more kind of in the wings, or do you see both of these guys coming in and contributing immediately?
The staff is high on Jackson Bowers. They're very high on Jackson Bowers. Just he was banged up at BYU, so staying healthy is key. I think this Oregon State tight end room is loaded with Caulfield coming back, and then tossing in Bowers and Riley Williams, and then I think Cooper Jensen's kind of a guy that's in the same boat as Jackson Bowers, and he's a guy that Trent Bray said he could be a guy that pops. I think health is key. If all these guys can stay healthy, then Oregon State's 4 deep at tight end. If Bowers can't stay healthy, if Jensen can't stay healthy, then it's where it gets a little iffy.
Yeah. Do you see, if these guys stay healthy, do you see the tight ends playing a bigger role in the pass catching part of the game?
I think so. I think so. I think the pass game as a whole is going to be a lot more. It's going to be a lot bigger a factor this year. Just going from Giovanni McCoy to Malik Murphy, I think that's a pretty big upgrade to say the least. So I'm excited to see how what's really a deep receiving core and tight end core, how they're all used. Because Oregon State's legitimately 3 deep at all receiver spots, 2 deep at the 2 tight end spots. I think Oregon State has a plethora of options with the quarterback that has the ability to get them all the ball now. So I'm really excited to see how it kind of plays out. Like, I feel like the top dogs in Trent Walker is pretty established, but outside of that, there's a whole lot of guys that are capable of making a ton of big plays, and hopefully the passing game is a lot more consistent this upcoming season.
Yeah, definitely. And then, like I said, we talked a little bit about Josiah Timoteo, offensive lineman from Nevada. But let's talk a guy that, one I think is huge, just because Oregon State did lose 2 of their inside linebackers in Melvin Jordan and Isaiah Chisholm, is bringing in Rajon Davis, inside linebacker from USC. How big was that get, especially, like I said, with the departures?
Yeah, I think it was a super big get, because I think having that experience is very key. I mean, he's a guy that'll be entering his 5th year of college football. He's a super talented kid. Really excited to see what he can do. He's not the biggest. He's like 6 foot, 215, 220. He's kind of more in the Easton Mascarenas Arnold type mold. But I think pairing him next to Dexter Foster is going to be very key. Foster is going to be one of, if not the best inside backer Trent Bray's coached at Oregon State, at least in my opinion. And I think having a player as experienced as Rajon Davis next to him, kind of helping him out, it's going to be huge. It's going to bolster the Oregon State defense tremendously.
Absolutely. We do have a comment. Jake just said Clemens is back, correct? So yes, Darius Clemens is back in the wide receiver room. I mean, I agree. I think what I like from watching Rajon Davis's film and what I've seen and heard from coaches I know and trust is just how rangy he is and how quick he is, and quick to respond and react. So really smart player. So maybe what he lacks in size, he can make up for in speed, knowledge, and athleticism. TJ Crandall is one I know you've been pretty excited about, cornerback out of West Virginia. Do you think he comes in and makes an impact immediately? Yeah,
I think he's probably going to compete with Extus Ayers and Kobe Singleton for a starting spot, and at worst case, be in the rotation. He's a guy that had a really strong true freshman season at Colorado State in 23, entered the portal. He had multiple schools after him, including Oregon State. I don't think they got him on campus, but I know they've pursued him pretty hard. He's a guy that is another Thomas Ford connection there with Team FSP in Seattle. So hats off to Coach Ford, because that was a big part of getting Crandall to Corvallis. He's a guy who I think he just fits in perfectly. He kind of reminds me of Andre Jordan almost. I think he'll have that similar kind of role. And I think with him, Jaleel Tucker, Mason White. I think Oregon State's got some real depth behind Kobe Singleton and Nexus Ayers.
And then some guys that maybe not as widely known: edge rusher from Southern Utah, Walker Harris, and D lineman Tajay Mullix.
Yeah, I mean, I think these guys are kind of unknowns at this point.
Yeah.
It's always kind of hard to tell how the FCS to FBS jump will go.
Yeah.
I know
More
the staff
guys.
Yeah. I mean, I'd imagine Harris, I would imagine, is going to be more of a depth guy just due to what Oregon State has with Taylor backs, Zakiah Saez, Shamar as well. Just a whole lot of depth in that room. And then I think with Tajay, I mean, Oregon State's interior defensive line, there's plenty of playing time up for grabs there. So I could see him starting. I could see him being a rotational piece. It's just I think seeing him in person is going to be a lot more telling.
Yeah, and the thing I've heard about Tajay is just the fact that he needs to add some weight, and playing for a smaller program. Excited to get him on campus where he can be in the strength program, be in the training table program, and really add the good weight. I glassed over, and I think I want to go back because I do think this young man has a chance to be a big contributor as well, as Kai Wallen out of Nebraska.
Yeah, he's got a super nice frame. Kind of fits that bigger outside backer mold. Again, didn't really play a whole lot at Nebraska, so excited to see what he does in spring camp.
And then a couple offensive linemen that we are excited to just see again, kind of in the same idea, just we want to see them, is JT Hand out of Arizona, and then Keon Cox out of UCF. Again, adding, Oregon State, and this was a comment earlier. I want to see, this was a comment. Let's see, Tyler A. He asked, do you think that the O-line could be a weak point of this team? What is that one of your big, and this is not the pod we're going to go in depth, but is that an area that you're concerned about right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably my biggest question mark on this team right now. Losing 4 starters definitely stings. Bam Wells is the only one that's back. I think spring ball is going to be crucial to get a lot of guys experience. Jacob Strand, Tyler Volton, and Tyler Moreno all are expected to miss spring. So that's going to open the door for a lot of younger guys like Jacob Anderson, Dylan Sikorsky, guys that haven't really seen a whole lot of action yet. I think it's really going to get them a lot of time going up against, Oregon State's ones. Like, they'll be going up against Nico Taylor, against Shamar Michael, Takari as well. Just that they're going to be going up against the best Oregon State has, and getting that experience in practice is going to be big, because it's going to make going out there on game days a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah, so that right there, that was a half-hour recap of Oregon State's 2025 class. Again, the big signee that we're waiting for on Wednesday will be Tristan Tia, quarterback, 4-star quarterback out of Amador Valley, California. Oregon State's also now made some splash with the 2026 class. So recruiting kind of never ends. There's never kind of a dull, a quiet period with recruiting. They added running back LaMarcus Bell out of Lake Oswego High School. Big pickup. Number 2 ranked prospect in the state of Oregon for the class of 2026. What do you like about this pickup, Jake?
He's a great back. I've gotten the chance to watch his tape a few times. He's elusive. He doesn't have that home run speed, but once he gets going, he's tough to catch. He's a guy who I think is going to end up as a 4-star. He's probably the best back to come out of the state of Oregon in quite some time. I mean, I really can't think of any off the top of my head. I'm probably missing someone, but he's a really talented kid. Schools wanted him. Utah just offered him a couple days ago after he committed to Oregon State. He's a guy who has a really high potential, and I think pairing him with Deegan Rose gives Oregon State 2 really good additions and a great building point in their class of 26, because those are 2 guys who are most likely both going to be 4 stars.
Yeah, 2 cornerstone athletes definitely that can help recruit and build a class around. That being said, Thomas Ford was a huge part in helping him, but we're also seeing the staff being really aggressive, including Coach Pickering, the new running back coach, especially in the South. What are we seeing as far as offers going out to 26s and even 27s here in the past week or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're definitely starting to see Oregon State, hit the South a lot more. That's a trend that we kind of saw start in the state of Texas last year. The Beavers pulled out a handful of guys from Lone Star State. We've seen Oregon State go to Florida a couple of times, but Coach Pickering's from the South. He spent a lot of time down there coaching at the high school level, and he's hit the ground running hard in the South. He's offered a ton of guys in Texas, a ton of guys in Georgia, a ton of guys in Florida, and the big one's been the state of Mississippi. There's a ton of guys from that state that have been offered. I want to say 10, 15, which is truly a lot. And then I think Texas, again, has been a big state. I think it was Louisville, the school where the Beavers pulled Damian Martinez out of in 22 and Zephan Walker this past offseason. They offered 8 or 9 guys from that school last week. So the Beavers are, they're starting to, recruit the South more, which I think is a good thing. I think that's kind of where the top athletes are: Texas, Florida, Georgia. So I think by expanding our footprint nationally, that can only be beneficial in my mind.
Yeah, and first official visitors are starting to get tied up. We learned coaches were on the road this past week. Kai Wheaton is the first known official visitor, confirmed official visitor. He'll be visiting campus in May. He is out of Texas, son of Kenny Wheaton, Oregon, former Oregon star and legend, and Kenny and Marcus Wheaton, Oregon State star, were cousins. So I don't know really how that, but they've had some fun on social media, Kenny and Marcus. Marcus is pretty happy to see Kai locked into an Oregon State visit. So lots to look forward to, Jake. The other big thing that hit earlier this morning is that we found out wide receiver coach Kafense Hinson is moving on to the NFL. Will be coaching with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So that opens up Hotboard. You have the Hotboard live right now on BeaverBlitz. Any tidbits that you want to share before we direct people to go check out the lodge at BeaverBlitz?
Yeah, I mean, I think one name to watch is Torrey Gill. He was the GA at Oregon State the last 2 years of Jonathan Smith's tenure. Knows Coach Fence well, knows Trent Bray well, knows Trent Walker, Jeremiah Noga, Taz Reddix, a lot of our receivers well as well. He's a young, talented coach. He's currently coaching at Alabama, so he's just spent the past year with Kalen DeBoer there, where he probably learned quite a lot. Coach with the Raiders for an offseason as well as a part of a coaching fellowship. So I think that's a potential name to watch if Oregon State goes after a familiar face. But they won't necessarily go after just the guy that they know. But if they do, I think Torrey Gill is the guy to watch.
There you go. But you do have the Hotboard up, and that will be updated as we hear new intel. But again, that is behind the paywall at BeaverBlitz. Make sure you join right now. We are running 30% off an annual membership. And as we said, there is not a dull moment. Baseball starts next week as the Beavs head to Surprise. Spring ball starts the first week in March. So this is not, there's no down season for Jake or I. So make sure you get your subscription to BeaverBlitz. But other than that, Jake, anything you want to add before we cut you loose?
Happy birthday. That's about it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Somebody has a birthday tomorrow. And that's why I ran away. I ran away to the sunshine. But thank you, Jake. That is very kind of you. But and it was kind of funny because everyone kind of knows in the lodge that if I go away, something big's going to happen. So, we got LaMarcus Bell. That was one thing. Now Coach Fence moving on. Signing day.
Does the biggest trade in NBA history count as well? I feel like that's
probably, I guess, but I don't. Okay, I know this is like blasphemy, but I don't really like NBA.
I love it.
I know it's totally blasphemy. My son actually texted me. My son and I, my 17-year-old, we have this fun little banter going back and forth because, of course, I'm of age that Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time. And
he is.
Okay, thank you, Jake, because Jack
I'm a
likes to
Jordan
tell
guy.
me
No.
that Braun is
Not
the best.
LeBron.
And
nope, it's Jordan.
so Jack actually sent me a picture when I landed in Hawaii, my son, because I left my husband and my son at home and came with my girlfriends, who are all Beavers, by the way. And I have to let you know, if you're listening and you're Beaver fans, because I actually had like kind of I don't buy a lot of green, but I did have a green t-shirt on today as we were out and about. And my girlfriends are all Beaver fans. And they told me, you have to change your shirt before you jump on the podcast because you cannot wear bright green on the podcast. But Jack sent me a picture of LeBron and it was like talking about this trade. And I had to kind of give him. So Jake, you're smart.
Yeah, no, I'm a Jordan guy.
You.
Definitely a Jordan guy.
Team Jordan. Anyway, that's big news, but I wish I liked NBA a little more than I do, but I don't. Sorry. Men's basketball. That is, I know they got worked over on the road at Gonzaga. What's the next game for them?
They have a huge 2-game slate this weekend. They got Washington State at Gill on Thursday night, and then St. Mary's at Gill on Saturday night, which
huge.
2 really
big games.
Really big games. If Oregon State wants to make a push, these 2 games are going to be crucial, and they can't really afford to drop another regular season game.
They play it's night and day different though how they play at home. It's crazy.
Yeah,
crazy different.
It truly is, and I've never really seen this much of a difference in a team before, so it's a little confusing. Like the loss to Gonzaga makes sense because it's Gonzaga.
Yeah, it's Gonzaga.
But some of the other losses are head scratching to say the least.
So hopefully they get back on track this weekend. We'll have rundowns and previews with those. And again, baseball starts next weekend or a week from the weekend of the Valentine's Day, 14th, 15th, 16th. So we'll definitely be back next week, Jake and I, and maybe a special guest to preview some baseball. But we're just getting started, guys. So make sure to join us at BeaverBlitz.com. In the meantime, follow him at Hedberg Jake on X. I'm at Angie Machado 1, and we'll be back next week with another episode of the Damn Podcast.